You're listening to Your Magical Midlife. This podcast is for women who are seekers, dreamers, and out-of-the-box thinkers. If you're a Gen X woman who never quite fit in, and probably never will, listen up. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and coach, and I'm here to guide you through the expansive, exhilarating, and sometimes exhausting crossroads that we find ourselves in at midlife. Whether you're a seasoned listener or just joining the adventure, think of this podcast as your hot pink convertible cruising down the highway of change. Together we'll navigate the sometimes baffling backroads of midlife and collect all the cool souvenirs along the way. Get in and buckle up. Our map may have flown out the window miles ago, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to have a blast. Let's hit the road and discover the magic just around the bend. Wiley Women is a wellness brand that wants you to live your best midlife. Developed by a naturopath, they offer tinctures, supplements, and drink mixes. Wiley uses plant medicine and clinical studies to demystify and embrace the hormonal powers and hidden complexities of grown women from the inside. Female formulated and female founded. Plus, they offer free shipping and easy returns. I love the Unworried tincture, which has bacopa, holy basil, passion flower, and reishi. It helps calm my body and stops the spinouts. It reduces jitters and lightens my mood. Go to www.wileywomen.com and use code KATEH2O at checkout to get 20% off. That's www.wileywomen.com and use code KATEH2O for 20% off. Diana Dunbar Place is the former senior VP of AOL and has a 40-year professional career spanning marketing, advertising, and multiple entrepreneurial ventures. In her 50s, she found herself in a powerful transition. She and her husband faced a triple whammy: financial challenges, a cancer diagnosis which forced her to close her business, just as her daughter left home from college. Once the dust settled, Diana was reignited by a passion for her next phase of life. She is the founder of Third Act Quest, a collective that supports, inspires, and connects women 50+ as they create their third act of life. Diana helps empower optimism versus fear and dread, and I am so thrilled to share this interview with you. Thank you so much for coming on, Diana. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
For the people who aren't familiar with what you do, tell everybody just a little bit about Third Act and Quest and this big vision that you had.
I'd love to. So Third Act Quest was born back in 2019. I'd been through a crazy illness. I had empty nested. I was about to turn 60. And I said, okay, got this emotional clean slate. I need to make money because I'd had to abandon a business. But I also have to have a more meaningful way to spend my time. And at that moment, I remember sitting in a chair just saying, you know what? I am blown away by the possibilities of my life at this time. I'm almost 60. And instead of being afraid for the first time in my life, I said, you know what? Sky's the limit. I'm going for it. I could have just died back then a couple of years ago. So I am going for it. And at the same time, and I believe this happens for all of us, when we have a dream of something we want to build, which Third Quest is that the right people come into our lives. So I ended up meeting a lot of older women who were doing extraordinary things into their late 70s and 80s, and even into their almost 90s. So I said, you know what? I want to tell the stories of women, the extraordinary, ordinary women, not just Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I started a series of Third Act Quest or Third Act storytelling events. I had a number of different retreats. So I've just been pivoting and moving around. But at the core, I really wanted myself included, I'm on the journey myself. I wanted us all to rethink and reframe the way we look at aging and the way we look at possibility. So that's the way it was born, and it's evolving over time to have really roosted into this community that you're now a part of, which I'm excited, called the 333 Collective. That's all about fostering possibility, connection, inspiration, friendship for women at this stage in our lives. I call it a third act. Some people call it a second. Some people call it a fourth. But it's just a very interesting period of time, of possibility. I like to say we flex our resilience muscles because we've been through lots of stuff, and we can learn to trust our heart to navigate through anything almost.
That's actually something I want to touch on, because was the inception for this when the period that you were ill? Because I know for myself, when I had my brush with ovarian cancer and I had to have a hysterectomy, when I was laying on my recovery bed, thinking about my life as it was, I knew that I wanted more for myself, and I knew I could not do my corporate job anymore. And I had to put it down and really start focusing on what I actually wanted to do, not just like, how am I going to make money to sustain this life that I'm not quite satisfied with?
Wow.
So was your sickness sort of where the seed was planted, or was it before that?
Oh, well, firstly, I'm sorry. In a way, I'm also, like me, grateful for these illnesses. Sometimes it does take a pretty crazy life disruption to
It really shook me up. It shook me like, hey, is this the life you want, or are you going to do something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's a really interesting question, because I think over time, I've had these ahas, because I spent most of my life in the corporate, different versions of a corporate existence, where I like to say I was always dancing on the edges of my passion, afraid to jump right in, for a number of reasons. I was always having to be productive, but I had these ahas, like these moments where I would say, this isn't enough. This isn't me. I've worn this friggin' corporate mask. This isn't me. And I would take a slight sidestep and try something on the side, but it never worked, because I still had this stupid, call it stupid, but this preconceived notion that that's not what I'm supposed to do. I have to perform. But anyway, so when I got sick, I honestly, and this is not insincere, it isn't just something I say because it becomes a nice silver lining, but I honestly look at the illness as the only way that would have stopped me from doing and continuing to do things that weren't truly me. So I'm grateful for it. It was weird. I had probably one of the most rare head cancers. And I remember laughing with the oncologist, saying, like, why couldn't I have won the lottery instead of this thing? And it was in that moment, even before I started my treatments and stuff, that I knew it wouldn't take me, because I knew I had a life that I was going to live after. So I had great faith. I believe in great medicine, but I also believe in the human will to live. And I had a really wild experience. I'll just share it really quickly. I'm sorry, but it was the moment when I realized that I could live on. I had this head radiation thing, and I'd have to be clamped down to the table for 45 minutes while the radiation was going. It was totally wild. And this Reiki practitioner said to me, imagine you're meeting your unborn grandchild. And I did. I was transported while this was happening. And that I held on to that, and still do, to the fact that it's now 5 years and I'm fine, But but back to your question, yeah, the idea for Third Act Quest came in an instant right after that was done because I was on my third act quest. So why not help and inspire other women to do it at the same time? So
That's absolutely amazing.
ah, I uh I still yeah, so I'm curious. I hope you don't mind me asking about your ovarian cancer. So when was that?
That was 2 years ago. They caught it very, very early.
Thank God.
All I needed was surgery.
Thank God.
But it was a year after my mother had passed. And
Oh,
even though I had a very complicated relationship with my mother, I really missed her very much when I was recovering. Because even though she and I had our problems, she was always a source of support. She was a nurse, so she would have been a really good comfort and source of support. And it was very lonely. I was very lucky my partner took very good care of me. He was amazing.
oh, good.
But I was very lucky that my job at the time made up the difference in my salary between, because I had been there long enough, they made up the difference in my salary between disability and what I had been earning. So that was good. But I was laying there thinking, like, is this enough for you? Can you just be in this managed care job, like typing up psychiatric admissions and approving them over and over and over again? Is this enough for you? And I knew it wasn't. And I had this vision of what I wanted to do, but it felt so impossible. And I would like you to speak on this if you could. When you have a wild vision and when you're in this corporate world, it's very hard to step out of that role because there's always that fear of like, what's everyone at my job going to think when I leave? Are they going to think I'm a lunatic? And I'm still worried about that. I post my things on LinkedIn and I'm sure people look at it and they're like, what is she even doing? How do you put that down?
Yeah. I believe that we come to this life knowing, and we know who we are until about the age of 5. And when other things intrude, school, education, peers, parents, everything intrudes, society, the culture. So I believe that until you either, Jane Goodall is a great example. So you either have your passion nurtured your whole life by everything around you, but still think about what she did and she countered as a woman in the sciences at all.
Right.
But she was nurtured. I won't go into a long story. She was nurtured mainly by her mother in the early days to keep that dream alive and her love and fascination with the natural world. And flash forward, look at what she's done. So I believe we all know in our hearts, but sometimes it takes a life-threatening illness to clear the shit, pardon my French, to clear the things out of your brain that make you want to be more, to conform, to stay in that job because you made a good paycheck and you got respect and you were on a trajectory and wow, look at your nice house and your nice, like we get molded by the way society rewards us. And it is scary to go out and do something a little different, but I like to call it the benefit, one of the gifts of aging and the gifts of being older is that you don't care anymore. You don't care if people think you're too woo-woo or people think you're crazy because you will seek out and you'll find people who don't think you're crazy. But you have to follow your heart, and you are. I am. We just are.
I think it's taking a long time to unravel that good girl programming that we all get. No matter how we grow up, I think just society puts on us, follow the rules, color in the lines, find a nice boy and get married and have babies and get a house with a picket fence and 2 cars and nice vacations once a year. And that should be enough. And maybe you'll get a pension and that should be enough for you. And then go on a Carnival cruise when you're 65, and then that's it. Then there's nothing else after that story.
Well, I told friends of mine, you know, because I'm almost turning 65, and the number of people that says, "So what are you going to do when you retire?" I'm like, "What? I'm doing what I'm doing because I love it. Yeah, I can technically call it work, but I will do this until the day I die." And they look at me like I'm crazy. They want me to come. I hate to say this, any of the listeners that I don't want to offend, but I use the act of obsession with pickleball as a way that says to me, yeah, well, if you're a great athlete and that's what you love it. But there's some limitation we put on ourselves, as you say, like the good girls, or this is what we do when we're this age.
Right.
We, you know, downsize and move to a sunny place and play sports.
Right.
And that's wonderful.
I always use Carnival cruise as my little like,
oh my God,
or pickleball, like.
yeah. Well,
I mean to offend anybody that loves Carnival cruises. Like, I'm not yucking anybody's yum. That's fine. I just use it as my placeholder.
Well, I think what we're recognizing, and which is so cool about this time of life, I think if we're lucky, we're the kind of person that has the courage and confidence to release the fear of not conforming or the fear of being judged. It took me a very long time to recognize that I wanted everybody to like me. I now realize that everybody doesn't like me. And it's okay. It's okay. And so that's why your cancer, my cancer gave us a gift to just say, if that's not enough, even if it's one day of our lives that we are, yeah, I have to clean my toilet occasionally, but if there's something that we are finding ourselves having to do that we don't truly like, I mean, yeah, we got to earn a living and maybe I have to do my accounting for taxes. I hate that. But when I talk about how we spend our time, we get to choose it, and we're choosing with our hearts instead of our head and the programming, which is a gift.
Yeah. I actually don't plan to retire, especially after I went to Quest.
Yay.
My vision when I left was to build a life that I never want to retire from, because it's just my life's work instead of something I'm doing until I get to get my gold watch and the little cake, like the Carvel ice cream cake or whatever they give you on your last day, and
helium balloons that get deflated by the end of the party. Yeah.
Yeah. None of those things. I don't want any of that. I want to build a vision that's a sustainable, something that feeds my soul.
Feeds your soul. That's expansive. That
Yeah.
isn't I like to say to people, the word purpose, what you're in your calling, is intimidating. So I just break it down and say, it's the thing that makes your heart beat faster. It's the thing that may affect one person or thousands of people. It doesn't matter. That's the thing we're here to do,
But I think a lot of people get tripped up in putting down the need for approval, especially women. There is this expectation that you're going to have a life that makes sense to other people. And to have a life, I think, that's enjoyable, it doesn't have to make sense to other people.
No.
But putting it down's hard. I'm still struggling with putting it down.
Yeah. I would say, in a way I do. I like to say I don't, but I use this term, I eat at the all-you-can-eat buffet of life. I want to do everything. I used to be ruled by, I wouldn't call it fear of missing out, but fear of not enough time to do it all. I have so many things I want to do. But now, instead of having that freak me out, I, like you, saying, like, I want to continue to refine the work of my life, and things around it aren't like, oh, it gets to take a vacation. the vacation or the travel or the experience is built in to what I do. It's like a beautiful tapestry that you create. So your work, my work could involve being in other places, being flexible to travel. A lot of the women at Quest you might have met have figured out ways to go live for long periods of time in other countries and continue their work while they're there. So there are ways to build your life that doesn't preclude a whole life. It isn't just all work, or it just isn't all leisure. It's everything can be melded in to it. But you have to be creative and you have to be inventive. And like you say, you have to be willing to not care that others are judging you. But also we have to be practical enough to have the financial support in our lives to continue. But for me, and this is interesting, I never really thought about this, but like I'm almost 65, but I could not retire. I ended up losing almost everything in a real estate.
Oh, I thought like from your illness. No?
Well, no, the illness was after that. But before that, we were quite comfortable. We were in part of an internet business, but my husband got scammed in a real estate thing right in 2008 and lost almost everything.
Oh.
And so I know I have to work, let's put it that way, but I don't care. It gives me the extra fuel because I don't know, like we were talking earlier about some people who win the lottery, some people who have trust funds end up not living fulfilling lives because they don't have a true drive for survival as much because of the
fire under their butt. Like, yeah. I think like having to do something is wonderful fuel to actually doing something.
Mm-hmm.
When I left my job in August, I knew that my severance was going to run out in the beginning of November, and I managed to magically put together a private therapy practice in 5 months, and now I've basically like replaced my corporate salary, which is amazing. It's not exactly what I want to be doing. It's adjacent.
But you're doing what you need to do.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, it gave me a sense of mastery. It gave me a sense of like, okay, all right, I can do it. I'm not like, I'm just not like a cog in a corporate wheel. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this.
Money is such a big topic and it's such a big trap.
Yeah.
And in fact, for me, I've got so many weird things about money. When I had what I call too much, there were several times in my career, I quit my jobs because I was like, I shouldn't be making this kind of money. I need to be helping the world. So money's a weird thing for me. I've now figured it out, thank God, at 65, and I'm happy for money to come into my life. Abundance is a big topic for a lot of us, but it is fascinating to say it feels good to, as you say, to have that fire under your butt to push you saying, I gotta try this.
Yeah. There's a certain aspect also of having faith in something, right? That you can take that leap and you can move forward with your dreams.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit to the 333 Collective and what its purpose is and the magic around it and the women you attract into this?
Well, first, I have to say that you were at our Quest event, which I called the 333 Collective Coming Out Party in such a way. So it's been around we founded it just over 2 years ago. And it came out of witnessing a craving that exists in a lot of women in their mid-50s usually and beyond. And the craving comes from looking around at the people that you're in relationship with, your friends, even some of your longest term friends don't get you anymore. You've moved apart. You see that maybe those relationships in your life aren't as healthy as you want. You see codependency. You really start to really realize that when it really comes down to it, You may have hundreds of people you call friends, but a real just handful, that the people that trust and have your back. So, especially people that you empty nest your kids, and you realize you've been at a lot of barbecues with the parents of your children's friend, and you really don't have anything in common. So there's a lot of that. People are leaving jobs, and instead of spending, 24/7 with their work cohort, they don't even, they go, wow, they aren't really my friends.
Right.
Some are, and that's where we're blessed to meet some of these people. But anyway, so I saw a craving for connection, but not just, hey, let's go out and, have dinner, but kind of really deep connection, people that get them. And so the unifying thread that I call it in the 333 collective, and the kind of women who are attracted to it and come and want to be in it, is that they're fiercely curious about life. And they want to live a full, exciting life. They're not shutting down. They're not stepping back. They're in fact saying, okay, yeah, I got a lot of challenges, some physical ones, maybe some financial ones, maybe some, but I want to go for it. I have dreams inside of me that I want to figure out some way to experience in this life. There's a quote I love. I get goosebumps even thinking of it. Mary Oliver is a beautiful poet, was a beautiful poet. The tail end of her poem, The Summer Day, is a question that I use a lot for myself and I'm on my website, but it's, tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So I think that's another unifying factor. These women that come to 333 are wanting to live as though recognizing that this is precious and magic, and the possibilities are really not ending. They're in fact potentially just beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the essence of why we started it.
Yeah. What really stood out for me at the retreat was, it seems that I'm not alone in this idea that, I can't afford to retire, but that's besides the point. I don't even want to retire. And it seems that maybe I'm not alone in that. It seemed that retirement might be a thing of the past in some ways.
Well, I had a conversation with somebody, so let's come up with another word. So some of the words that have come up is refirement.
I like that.
I love that. To me, it's remembering and reconnecting, and really reconnecting with who you are is what happens. Well, there are some financial reasons why people can't retire, yes. And that, let other people who are more, economic planning in mind handle that. For me, it is emotional. There was actually a really cool study by Stanford longevity department. I'd forgotten the name of the organization, but basically they created what they call the U curve of happiness. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but so the vertical axis is happiness and the horizontal axis is age. So basically it's a giant smile, and it says we're happiest at the beginning and ends of our lives. So certainly there are bigger challenges than many of us ever imagined with our physical health, our caregiving, and things like that. But in the end, our true joy, I believe, comes from leading a life of meaning. And that to me means that you don't retire. If you have a job you love, you may be forced out, and that's a big issue. A lot of older workers are passed over. I can't tell you the number of friends I have who are in their 50s who can't even get a call back for a job interview because of their age. So that's a huge, huge issue. And that's why so many, if you look at the stats for small businesses, so many of them are founded by people, but mainly women in their 50s and beyond, out of necessity, but also what a gift to be in control of your own destiny. So I think we'll see more and more people who are not, as Bonnie Marcus, I don't know if you've met her, but as she says, I'm not done yet. I have plenty more to give this world. And I believe that by being engaged, by living expansively, and by having a life of meaning and work you love, the work of your life, as you said, it keeps us going longer. I think it's a secret to longer lives.
Yeah. I mean, we are going to be living longer and longer. We're, with medical advances, and we're lucky to be, two of us have had our brushes with illness, but we're recovered and probably going to live another 30, 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
And I see the condition that my dad is in, and my dad has dementia. He's still kind of with it, but he's stage 5 dementia, but he also lives in an assisted living. And that is not what I want for myself. And none of my friends want that. Even if I had the money, I would not want that. He lives in like a medical Marriott. I mean, that's fine. But I don't see any of us doing that. And
No.
certainly not any of the women I met at the weekend I spent with you.
Well, it's very interesting. You probably had these conversations with your friends, and we don't know how to mastermind these, but I'm like, we're going to co-own a home. We're going to funnel our money together to hire a nurse and a chef.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that for less money than you can get into these medical Marriotts anyway. So yeah, that's what I want to figure out at some point. Yeah. The other thing the only thing that I really, one of the bigger fears I have is I do not want my aging to negatively impact my daughter.
Right.
Yes, she'll miss us. Yes, she'll miss me, but I do not want to be a burden in any way. So that's what helps drive me to stay engaged, be as healthy as I can, is, yeah, for my sake, but I do not want to burden her. That's one of the fears that I want to try to keep ahead of.
Yeah, I don't ever see that happening, by the way. Yeah, one of my big dreams is to buy a big piece of land and have people buy into it and build like tiny homes so that we're all like in a
Sounds
little
perfect.
Yeah, with a nurse and someone who comes out like once a week, twice a week. Yeah. Because nobody wants to be like an elderly person and because when people give up and they move into those places, they just go downhill. Because they're like, nobody wants to watch like Navy SEALs, in an auditorium with other elderly people. They want to be engaged and talking about world events, ideas, visioning. Because you lose your vision when you go into those places. You just give up.
You give up because people give up on you, or the society doesn't set up a way for you to continue your life. I love your vision. I think that's brilliant. I don't know if you met Marty McNabb, who lives in several places across the country, but she has a mobile home that's sort of like a tripped out, really cool van that's not this massive thing. She has invented her way of living that I am blown away. And more, you're seeing a lot of people do that. So I think your vision, I think you got to keep that one alive. I love it.
Absolutely. I love that you are creating a community where it becomes more increasingly possible to see that you don't have to like just sort of shrivel up and blow away in the wind, at 50, at 60, at 70, at 80.
Yeah.
When the woman who climbed a mountain at your retreat, she was in her 80s.
Yep.
And, the other woman, I can't remember her name, but she went across country by herself in a mobile home, and she was in her late 70s when she did it.
Well, Eve Gordon, who's Sky Bergman's mom, she was on the Yeah, we had that magic of intergenerational connection panel, which I loved. But so Eve and also Marcia Dixon, who is, she's my angel. She's the woman who basically saved me when I was sick. Because of her business, I mean, she was still working into her 70s, and she had a very, very impressive business in insurance, but she raised my case to the head of my insurance company. I was being denied the kind of treatment I needed because it was out of state, and as an entrepreneur, I had a cheapo health plan. She raised it to the president of my insurance company, and he gave me what he later told me was the once in 20 years exception because I'm sure my treatment was pretty expensive. But anyway, so Marsha was my ticket to that. So I have an 80-year-old who's like getting it done for me. So not only did that impress me about the capability of having a purposeful life in that age. Eve Gordon ended up sailing around the world in her 60s for like a year and a half with her husband who built the boat. I mean, most people would think that was crazy, but they do it. They just do it because, and I think there's a unifying spirit of that. It's not everyone that has that that spirit and desire. And in many cases, like, you know, this is a little out of the blue, but when lightning strikes a beach, it turns the sand into crystal. So when you have stuff happen to you, it wakes you up. And so that's why many of the people we see have been through tough trials in their lives, and that's made them stronger and made them more fiercely curious to keep living every drop of the life they've been given.
Absolutely. I want to move on to just my quick lightning round. Because
Okay.
I told you here hostage all day, and I appreciate your generosity.
Well, I could talk to you all day. I really enjoy it. Thank you.
So these are questions I ask everybody at the end of the podcast episodes. And I appreciate your time and your generosity. You are so inspiring.
Well, thank you. You
And
are
I'm
great. You are
so glad I met you. I'm so glad I stumbled on it. And I'm so excited to be associated with you.
Me too. Me too. You.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Used to be tea. Coffee only in the last year of my life. That's a weird one, but I worship it.
What do you put in your coffee?
I have this fabulous frother that I put grass-fed whole milk layer on the top.
Lovely. Favorite snack?
Almonds.
Oh,
Wow, it's fun.
just plain regular almonds? Just salted or unsalted?
Salted.
Oh. I know you created an amazing playlist for Quest, but what's your favorite song for this period of your life?
Can I say 3 of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is the song we danced to, Coldplay's Adventure of a Lifetime. And if you listen to the lyrics, you'll know why. The second one is a moodier version of how I feel when I'm in nature, and it's Into the Mystic.
Mm.
And then the third one is, oh my God, I love ABBA, is I Have a Dream. And so those 3 are among thousands of things I love to listen to, but they're the 3 that pop into my mind first.
Love it. What's your superpower?
Connection.
I totally agree with that for you.
It's the thing that turns me on more than anything. I love doing millions of things, but I love it when I see people meet and the magic that happens in that.
Absolutely. If you could get in a time machine and tell your 30-year-old self something, what would it be?
I would say trust yourself. You know, that's what I would say.
Love it. Do you have compassion for her when you look back at who she was and what she was going through? And
I actually have great compassion for her. I also have great respect for her.
Yeah.
I do. That was exactly at the time that I ditched my first corporate job to start a cause marketing firm because I wanted to make a difference in the world, but it failed miserably and I went into negative zeros in my bank account. So I respect her. I respect her. She didn't do it right, but she did it.
she did it. At least she tried. At least she put herself out, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you, for your generosity, your time. I'm going to put in the show notes how people can connect with you, how they can check out everything you're doing in the world, because you're doing so much for women 50 and up. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kate. I really enjoyed it today.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Magical Midlife. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. You can follow me on Instagram at Your Magical Midlife. You can also check out my offerings on my website, which is www.yourmagicalmidlife.com. I offer individualized coaching for women 45 plus who are seekers, dreamers, and out-of-box thinkers. I also offer luxury retreats that include ritual, rites of passage, and ceremony for women 45 and beyond. I'd be so excited to work with you. Also, if you're feeling kind and you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star review, as it opens this podcast to a broader audience and keeps me in those pesky algorithms. Thank you so much for your partnership with me. I appreciate you. Have a great week.